If I had no fear of failure, what would be the first thing I would do tomorrow? Tomorrow morning, I would wake up with one question in my mind. What would I do if I knew that even failure could not stop me? And the answer would surprise me. It wouldn't be climbing Mount Everest. It wouldn't be quitting my job on impulse. It wouldn't be doing something reckless. The first thing I would do is begin the one meaningful project I have been postponing. Not because I suddenly became more talented overnight. Not because I suddenly had more money, not because every obstacle disappeared, but because fear would no longer be sitting in the driver's seat. The truth is that many of us don't delay because we are lazy. We delay because we imagine failure before we even begin. We rehearse disappointment. We picture embarrassment. We worry about what people will think. We convince ourselves that now isn't the right time. Fear quietly whispers, wait. Wait until you're smarter. Wait until you're richer. Wait until you're younger. Wait until you're older. Wait until everything is perfect. But tomorrow never arrives for the person who keeps waiting. If I truly had no fear of failure, tomorrow would become the day I stop preparing and start creating. Maybe I've dreamed about writing a book. Tomorrow I'd write the first page. Not the perfect page, just the first page. Maybe I've always wanted to start a business. Tomorrow, I'd register the name, make the first phone call, or build the first version. Maybe I've wanted to create videos, start a podcast, learn a new language, change careers, or launch an idea that has been sitting in my notebook for years. Tomorrow, I would finally move. Because movement changes people far more than intention ever does. Here's something worth thinking about. Most successful people didn't begin because they were fearless. They became less fearful because they began. Confidence is rarely the starting point. Confidence is often the reward for repeated action. Think about riding a bicycle. No one feels completely confident before getting on the bike. Confidence grows after falling, getting back up, adjusting your balance, and trying again. Life works much the same way. If fear disappeared tomorrow, I would also have difficult conversations I've been avoiding. I'd apologize where I need to apologize. I'd forgive someone if holding on to resentment has only been hurting me. I'd tell people I love them more often. I'd say thank you without feeling awkward. I'd ask for help without feeling ashamed. I'd ask questions instead of pretending I already know everything. Because fear doesn't only stop dreams. Fear also stops honesty. It stops connection. It stops healing. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do isn't standing in front of thousands of people. Sometimes it's making one phone call, sending one email, having one conversation, saying I was wrong, or saying I need your help. If failure held no power over me, tomorrow I would become more curious than cautious. I try things simply because they might teach me something. Children learn this naturally. Watch a child learning to walk. They fall again and again and again. But they never conclude, walking isn't for me. Imagine if adults learned that way. Imagine if after one failed interview, one rejected proposal, one unsuccessful business, or one difficult relationship, we simply said, interesting, what can I learn from this? Our lives would look very different. Failure itself isn't usually what destroys dreams. It's our interpretation of failure. We mistake an event for an identity. I failed quickly becomes I am a failure. Those two statements are worlds apart. One describes something that happened, the other describes someone you believe you are. And that belief can quietly imprison a person for years. Tomorrow, if I had no fear of failure, I would stop measuring success by immediate results. Instead, I'd measure success by courage. Did I show up? Did I try? Did I learn? Did I become a little stronger today than yesterday? Because those are victories nobody can take away. Here's another realization. The people we admire most have often failed more than the rest of us. They've simply accumulated more attempts. Behind every remarkable achievement are countless invisible mistakes, books that were rejected, businesses that collapsed, ideas that didn't work, performances that went badly. Nobody sees those chapters because history usually remembers the ending. But the ending only exists because someone refused to quit in the middle. If fear disappeared tomorrow, I would also spend less time comparing my journey with everyone else's. Comparison creates another kind of fear. The fear that you're too late, too ordinary, too inexperienced, too unknown. But your life isn't a race against someone else's timeline. A tree doesn't compete with the flower beside it. The sunrise doesn't apologize because it arrived after midnight. Everything has its own season. So do you. Without fear, tomorrow I'd stop asking, what if I fail? And I'd replace it with better questions. What if I learn? What if I grow? What if I inspire someone? What if this small beginning changes my entire future? What if the life I've been hoping for is waiting on the other side of one courageous decision? Because that's often how transformation happens, not through one dramatic leap, but through one small decision made repeatedly. One page written, one workout completed, $1 saved, one difficult conversation, one act of kindness, one more attempt, then another and another. People often overestimate what they can accomplish in a day, but they underestimate what consistent courage can accomplish over years. So if tomorrow I had absolutely no fear of failure, I know exactly what I would do. I would begin, not because success is guaranteed, but because growth is. Even if I failed, even if I stumbled, even if I had to start over, I'd still become wiser than I was today. And perhaps that's the greatest secret of all. Failure is rarely the opposite of success. More often, it is part of success. Every attempt teaches something that thinking alone never can. So maybe the real question isn't, what would you do if you weren't afraid of failing? Maybe the deeper question is this: what dream has fear been asking you to postpone? What conversation? What opportunity? What creative idea? What business? What relationship? What act of courage? Because tomorrow will eventually become today, and someday, today will become yesterday. Years from now, you probably won't regret every mistake you made. You'll be far more likely to regret the opportunities you never gave yourself permission to pursue. So perhaps the first thing to do tomorrow isn't to eliminate fear completely. That may never happen. Perhaps the first thing is simply to refuse to let fear make your decisions. Take one step, then another. You don't have to know the entire path before you begin walking. You only need enough courage for the next step. And who knows? The life you've been imagining may not begin with some extraordinary moment. It may begin tomorrow morning, when you finally decide that fear no longer gets the final vote.